Good morning, Geshe Yeshe Thabkhe. Good morning, Katrina. Thank you for your translations. Welcome to everyone online. We'll begin with some motivational prayers as usual.
To the teacher of darkness and destroyer, one that's gone, for destroyed, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, no other world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed. Teacher of God's the Buddha and doubt, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, prostrated doctrines and go for when, O supreme among humans, you are born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies, form supremely fine, with motion like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner the best, supreme guide, to you I bow. With a supreme sign, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate, protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the law, unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame, a little lamp, and a million, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the 12 volts, and be delivered from the ocean of psychic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, for land, sun, and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Tiram Gururana Mandalakam Yatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient.
Oh yeah.
Dixon.
Just again.
Oh, det så.
Ja.
Oh ja. Jag tar till det kanske. Ja, det är ju så kanske. Ja, det tar ju inte ju lära. Jag ska inte bestämma det så där. Till lektion det mer. Det är inte det mer det kinam så där. Chanju ju sem kombate ne så vara. Det mer så pechan så goda. Men det ju tomatelia. Keva Menjikse, Chunjikse, the Jibayo, Zabulika, Tondoyara, or Tichurikasa, then it tute, Tuji Tamalia, the Nurki Jitendi, Zabulina Soba Nurki Jitendi, May Jibber Shigre, Sarah, to them Meshitution. Kiji Chiging about Separations. They are member doing it, they welcome to the chair. The Gamgazunium do Charget to Master Sungambe, Lion and someday Tambu mentioned the sick to each other. Someday Niba and Jet your mother, someday Tambu may sick to each other. Or to you do. Then you to 10 messages, to you tame them really de la soba. Anybody see what she made the bullying de nurging you can sometimes get on. This someday Dolage, someday Tambugi. And then Jaggy, nurging you can to the Congo, Kaji Chig separate cigarettes, or then it to them message teaching them Kaji Chig in your separate. Or that the patient station do. Dene se chanju ki sem kumba dene se wara ane tikba chenpo namse nyawa yeda tondo la soba teta kechi ke tikba chenpo sama tamje te kechi chila nge batu ba sekbar shane ane te lekin tebu nabi nyoma gu ba sogode se wara kechi chiki nge ba sekbar shane te penye padu me ba ta chamgo lo dan dembe no sanshas o tezu sama penye jungwa tezu ndole songba ta tezu sama tamje te ngebe ten yinse 오늘 전에 종교하라마도 장대 말했어. 산재가 송라 내던다 장대신이 요구하라. 내배 전선에 지들 송반나시 돌이야 내버데 송송에 내던서래. 송바다가나시 돌이 내버래. 장대에서도 송유나야. 제 송반나시 다시신도 kell나 요 말해. 로아. 티 공바데 되질 시에는 송바데서. 변화가죠. 가사가 다 여봤다 변도 되고라. 아니 가서래. 풍붕안에 쿠르 코코번에 가사고세 다 여봤은 거라. 풍붕안에 쿠르네 티나로 쿠르코게 가사데 나로 요래서라. 티 송고사 용거래. 다음에 벌써나도 코베 쳐다보네. 나왔다는 드라마 내가 그런 팬도시요 말네 마도. 근데 그때 송샤라. 내가 그런 거 다음에 발라 뜨면데 림지 뜨에서도 그 배운 거 송샤라. 전에 현다 때문에 추송네 네 바로 질러 다 콜시나 디도 삼나 아니 송구여라. 어때서 다들라 장대에서 태가를 송번나 시켜내 줘 말에 대 공부한데 되실 시인데 되게 송바데서 그 배운 것이 장고 같은데 단단데도 자주 선배 자주 섬고 배평에 고도 마무 송소아 어때서 상마대 내들에 스톤을 송번나시 오늘 배우죠 말아 trae de cobeon que estaba son shabatin de mare son do ya tichilana.
So here, as the great Bodhisattva Shantideva has stated in his Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, he gives this example to illustrate the benefits of meditating on bodhicitta and cultivating that. So it says, just as by the fire that will destroy the world. So here we are looking at cosmology, wherein the entire world, this kind of worldly system, will be destroyed by fire and water and so forth and become empty. And so at that time, the entire sort of container world will be destroyed all the way through the first concentration and below. The second concentration and above in the material and immaterial realms will not be destroyed, but everything else, there's like this incredible fire that in an instant it is able to destroy that entire world system. And just so, like that example, great negativities are surely and at once consumed by it. It is the case that by meditating on bodhicitta, we are able to consume, like this great fire consumes the entire world, consume our negativities. And this is something, as it continues, its benefits are thus unbounded, as the wise and loving Lord explained to Sudana. And so here, this is as was taught in the sutras, and this is something that is a definitive teaching. So we have among the Buddha's teachings those that are definitive and those that are provisional, those that require some kind of interpretation, wherein we can't take them literally at face value, like as the words say, but rather they were taught for a particular purpose. And we see this often in the Buddha's teachings. For example, the teachings that and say there is some kind of a self that is taught for a purpose. Or we see other teachings where, again, the Buddha seems to be teaching that there is a self, like there is the person that bears these five aggregates and so forth. And these are taught for the purpose of those who would be hurt by the teaching of emptiness, would fall into a kind of nihilistic extreme. And so for a temporary time, it is beneficial to teach them that, yes, there is a self and so forth. And when they have developed to a particular point of progression, then it becomes appropriate to give them the teachings on emptiness and so forth. But here, when we see the descriptions of the benefits of bodhicitta, this is not a provisional kind of a teaching that requires interpretation. The descriptions of the benefits of bodhicitta are definitive, or something that we can have faith in, are really describing that. They aren't taught for some kind of other purpose in order to lead disciples, but rather are something that we can look at and say that is definitively the case.
Oh yeah. Oh, do kasoda. That the pay card so long. Chanju sem kombala pay to the young carisana. Chamba that's all the ships on the young Yoba. Not too much it in the so young chamba share. The young Godoa. Oh, do kasoda. Oh, Shanlia. Simply Shanlia, Tawapang, but a pember to Bani. Kadambe kishes to Songodoa. Sanjay Church to Tushana. Shella pember to Bata. Tawapang Banina, do it. Oh, Tinil, Shambecho Omaris. But this one I should did on the Umaranji Travel Tiger Rosa. Azukarsere. Cause a chinda chitim sawa. Tamju Lambuchella Khan. Magu, Ludum Bashila Chimese. Chimba chitin Servala Soba. A right Chimba Sumla Sobayaba. Servale Sumla Sobayaba. Chinda chitim sawa. Tamju Lambuchella, Tambecho Lamgacho, the things that in a do Rusambara. Tell you, Kusha Mebase, Shalla Saw Bayata, Ra, Shalla Pemba to Walla Soba, Tezulia, Kusha Mebase, Deva Mebase, Kashela Sawachana Duty, Kasha Sana Duty, Sayatoya, Nari set up to the Chanity, those numbers and Diomara, or Denicasra. Shalla Ludum Bashila Chemese. Lucale gave Susulia, coming to Tibata to teach that Tilia. Che Maresera. The Carson Susulil Calitation. There's some beauty you want your Marwa, Shanlia Pemberto, Chambada Savacone, Shell Pember, she may be choosing the Carco Dosina. The other day, Lutum Bashila Shebe, the other day, Shall never pong, Mrs. Shall Pemberto, Mrs. Seba. Shall never get Bangio Pendoke to your mother. Or Tini show you on your mother. Garanzo Chanju Sam Combaina. Subject Tamjak better to be Kevin better, touching but to raise you some time. You are a theatre of Lochang Yora. Don't when you combaina, Kotara. You more some much down, you more some of your saga shitting, some around. And the rank catches you say it in you could do, say, and don't when you come go. Mida was somebody in there, oh, send it to Tanganasi, Maridas, Dogo Resti, Desanko, Kiwacheva in a shell of Pembata, Tipapa in a Kiwachimado Satisla and Miko Balas over Rimia and Rotude, Tim and then Rotu Marisungora, or the Indian of the Chudi, Carina, shell of Sawapamba, Pembatura. That the Tarshabachi, this I gave Kovatobat, in the Shigis, Tandan it did on Dalia. Bezushako, Retandani Changueritoa. Shall a pendoshi, shall a toy on your fire. Roy nearing it in Mechedalia. Nazare by Campushi, Mikio Chupa, Kiwachu to be nearing some of Dagora. This some of done any again to the Kaga Yungura. Or some of the Tabar started. Yari Andrea, Chikti, Semia, you Andrea, or touch you to Chilapsi, Jugudu, Samsa. So pay you are. The same thing in Manashisha and that's the pay the Yungura. In a quota, take some just when it's all the Langazuku get Yamara. Or the typification. In between Gazu could have it and Dangazuka Chinju one, Chanju St. Pay social demand. Lord, you teach it, or teach sooner.
So Here we're talking about the benefits of bodhicitta, and to be able to gain those benefits, we need to have a foundation of love, affectionate love and compassion. And we do this by training our minds. And for example, the sixfold cause and effect method of recalling that all sentient beings have acted as one's mother, recalling their kindness and wishing to repay their kindness and so forth. And so really this all comes down to the kind of most essential dharma of the Buddha, which is we should benefit others and abandon harming them. Really, the Kadampa Geshes used to say that all of the Buddha's teachings could be encompassed in just that. Whatever kinds of practices we are doing, whether it is generosity or ethical conduct or patience, this great path, and it's been described in verses that came earlier here in the precious Garland, that really all of the practices of the Mahayana are dependent upon that foundation of benefiting others and not causing them harm. To sort of disrespect that, to think that, oh, well, I'm doing this higher practice, so I don't need to worry about whether I'm harming others temporarily or whether I'm benefiting them, but I'm going to do my practice somehow that's above that or aside from that. That's a great mistake. And also to do things like, for example, endure physical austerities, thinking that by somehow taking it out on your body, you are able to remove your negativities. Really, that kind of practice isn't dharma at all. I mean, dharma, again, the foundation is to not harm anyone. And if you're just harming your body, there's no benefit that comes of that to you or to other sentient beings. It's actually something that is harmful. And so here, bodhicitta, this kind of attitude, is wishing to benefit all sentient beings without exception, without making any kind of distinctions. And so all of our practices should really be grounded in that trying to benefit and doing no harm. Whatever practice it is, whether we are thinking about emptiness, we recognize that, well, this realization of emptiness is what I need to cultivate, because really all of the suffering that I create for myself and others comes from these afflictions that arise from this grasping at an I and that kind of self-cherishing attitude that comes along with it. We see how that realization is something that eliminates that source of the harm that we do to others, or the kind of thought of contemplation of impermanence, recognizing that we don't remain as we are, but we are going to have to pass along. We realize the importance of focusing on our actions, that by doing actions that are virtuous, that benefit others, and abandoning any harm to others, we can go to higher realms and continue to develop and improve. And so really, Buddhahood itself is the culmination, the highest point of this practice, this exercise of abandoning harming others and benefiting them as much as we can. If we don't do that, however, if we don't implement that in our lives, in our day-to-day interactions, there's no way to develop that, right? And to get to the point of Buddhahood. But we need to do this now, from any time that we interact with others, really thinking about how we are using our mind, how our mind is working. If we act like, oh, I'm doing dharma and we're just sort of doing other activities but not changing our mind, maybe there's a little bit of benefit that will come, but we don't really get at the root, the most important thing, which is cultivating this wish to benefit others without any kind of exception and abandoning any sort of harm to them. And so here, recognizing the great power and importance of this attitude of bodhicitta, as well as what it is based on, I have been describing then these verses on the benefits of bodhicitta from the first chapter of Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life.
Oh yeah, the knowledge Sunguta and the long time. Simjan Namda Javala, Sanje Chutu Javalas. Sanje Tene, Sanje Lavja Suni, Tinashe, Lavja Sumbati, Kachambura. Tinashe Raga Simjan, Pig, Sanje Sumbana Shegi, Sawapamba, Pemba Tubala, Soba Pen Trubne, and they also start out daughter. Mando at the Simjan Sawachi at Telemachan Vinani, so some mamma do at the Redditor. Sapeke Sambura de Ora. The Simjanam Sanje Chutu Davala, Gala, which it is into Simjanam, Michis, the Madivi Soguda. The Nagaranzo Samblin al Carosina, or Simjan takers and Garazzo God is a Cashera, Busin de Gina, Tondu de Gina, Ting Adu de Chibade, some such mother take Yomara. Ting of Corazzo, Garazzo le Dua Yore, Danda Yore, Peja Coa Cotangitare, Yinaya. 나라서 건조 개체부터 했어라. 그런 동에게 나 단단 가지던 자다시 신대 연한 가지 건조리아 잠보다 자와다 개체슈도 세베이나 네 소소래 펜바트에 저한테 요거라. 심지어는 주주도 성도단다 마디나 마드와데 계절날 소치시기도 대 섬로도 갸견이야 셔셔드로나니 야야로 산제보다 로에도 시기도 사티코 개체번데 섬로다고라. 대 섬로다에는 Ini ngazu ti labchandan ti udo karsara. Tane simje tamjala ishin nobule lagwese samlu shenda ishin nobule lagwese do ti nawandro se kayo mara kare ishin nobule budin tin ma buteso kaga ishin nobule security konda megedi dwa. Kinde chede ngone tin dosho kadi ne sam consultant samlu tandal tene pede karsora. Soso tandal labchi samadro dwa. Tiyan ko labche jagdo chambada sewas tambo sosu nangmi de dondi chese tine gochu tepe keshin buredo ajo nawa ke yamara dondi chese to namji na shi chada chese ti kang che ni simje tamje nirin chada se ache de kawa simje tamje kayo na kaji shada zo ni dawa ke yamara tanda gajo kede ko chambada zawa changsa de nangmine changsa pada malani goja puda chombe de baile mese de chawtesh tine ne sosu nyende to che tine sosu namje de de to chogwana che ne sosu tongba ye ti de ye to so tine ba ja ser dan te na shi tamje le sa chabiye de ko longang ge sule yong go ra tine changba ina o ti de te zo ke shimbo de to sosu tele ge tine che o changgo ba 예지 종반에 소부도와 진짜 샤바네 버르지 건강하게 심지어 탐지해야 되는 거라 개발 맹게 심지어 탐지해서 심지어 상망 오시래를 늘을 알려요 말아 산제 더그도 중에서 심지어 탐지 다 들어오는데 정말 장토요 말아 소소면에 개발지에 맹게 그거 남중에 개발지에 맹게 거두이 나고 심지어 인버 잠지 대원들 동해면도 심지어 인버 잠 samlu tito ne yo mado shenda ke mebo otinde chasuna ne simje tamjel mi go seti yo gora she sammo ngoshe yo ye mebe sulu tinde ro ngara zu kam ngoshe ngara che o te de ti ke shimbu yebade lo changda de ya bo chinga chu je ti tak ba de se samlu ta de ne ya je do ra nga zu ya je do me do samsa samgido ka cheda re che che ya be che me do samsa ta tinde se che yo re nyama nga zu trabashi yoareta minglamne dioba trabashi yoare ko te chulu shenda chi yursode jo nambaruda te karse do se chi ki kejitere kena karse so gansu tanda troboshi yoare kona ti kejitere ta kera kawu mara nga de chulu te yururida sere ane karse jode se ta nambu pe ya wo de sha sigora ina kya cheta chende chetuye che mendu se chetuye mendu se Tile konzo che mogo je konzo koran soata pa mengen ko che ti che to kudo asa ngaje kare ne kera se o tinde de sangba o ti asa de samjo sanga o ti so de che za ko tangbo dinde ja chenbo yo de che de chungju ko den go chu che ne che yo ra go ne chungju ne je go chu yo ra rang sem ne yo so de sa je tembe samlu ta da kyure dang che ne ene ko shine so Roro sinye yora toara che. Tichi e mebe je ne dice ore sa mandara che ne che tuye che mege soa nyanga doa ota mangda sa tenda ba. O de indu karsura. Ya te bodo che suna na mangda sa. Paru che loza wa ti che che ne.
So, Geshe was just saying he sometimes forgets about the translator. So sorry about that. So we see again from Shantideva and the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life that I often quote that the state of Buddhahood depends on beings and on Buddhas equally. So what kind of practice is it then that honors only Buddhas but not beings, right? So it's not in terms of the qualities that they are the same, but in terms of the ripening result that comes to us. So we should see all sentient beings as equal in wanting to have happiness and not wanting to suffer, just on the basis of their being sentient beings. And we need to do this by actually training our mind in relation to those that we interact with on a daily basis. We have to come to see their suffering as important. We have to really also recognize the kind of benefit that we are gaining from sentient beings, right? It is in relation to them that we create the kind of virtues that bring us happiness, that bring us good. And so all of our benefits, even all the way to Buddhahood, is dependent upon other sentient beings. And so we should come to view them in the way that it's described in the 8 verses of Training the Mind, that all sentient beings are like a wish-fulfilling jewel, right? I mean, most of the time, we don't look at other sentient beings as being a wish-fulfilling jewel. We might see them as an annoyance or this or that, but we have to come to this point through beginning with those that are around us, beginning with our family, our friends, those that we interact with on a regular basis, and actually have a feeling, like really have a felt sense of how important they are, a wish to relieve their suffering, and I wish, again, that they have happiness. And this is something where if we don't begin with those around us and try to extend that out more and more, and we just sit down and say our prayers and say like all sentient beings, it's like it's this, kind of a mass somewhere of beings that we don't actually know. We don't actually have any feeling toward. And so as it is taught in the Buddha's teachings, that we should begin by respecting one's parents, respecting the parents and those in our family. That's where we begin from. And so when we have that kind of natural concern for those around us, we wish for them to have happiness, we wish for them to be free from suffering, then we naturally kind of have this sense of respect that arises towards them. But it is something that depends upon our training the mind, right? It's not as though when we say like all sentient beings, we can't know all of them. We can't get like a personal introduction to all of them. But any being who appears in front of us, we should recognize as a sentient being, as equal to us in their being, in their wanting to have happiness and wishing to be free from suffering. And so here, if we begin training our mind by every single being that we interact with, then eventually we can make that expand more and more to all sentient beings. So it is that whoever arises in front of us, we wish to benefit them and wish that they be free from suffering. But this is something that, again, depends upon our training our mind, beginning where we are at. And so there's a little story about a monk that he decided to convert to another religion. And once he had converted, someone asked him, like, well, why did you make this kind of conversion? And he said, Buddhism is great. The ideals are great, but it's something that I can't do. It's so vast. It's so expansive. But I am able to, say, make supplications to like a triple gem or a higher power and request their blessings. So that's why I converted. It seems like, oh, well, this is the ideals of Buddhism are great, but it's not something that I can reach. And so, just sort of praying to a god is easier. And so we should recognize that, yes, the goal is quite vast. Encompassing all infinite sentient beings is something that maybe we can't even imagine, but we have to start where we are. This is really important, as the line we recite says, to subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha, right? So we begin with our mind in everyday interaction, and we start where we are, and slowly through that kind of training, we can develop our mind further. Otherwise, there's the danger of thinking like, oh, well, that's a great ideal, but that's not something that I could actually do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a go car soda. Nagarjuna namju samlu tanda the kartan gursina. So de ko metapares chera, duche tamje metapara. Joa chigi chudan kian tane yongo chigara. Ina ngarajo semje kyunti kyun machabi tegora. Joa change ba ta machine pe zogu mare shine semje kyunti yam tamo change ya kya chela to sdogure. Italia chevne de kya ngama ya so semchi yore. Tinga ma chidu tinga zo namba ge samlutandu 소소 때 생기 견디 유로진 게 지나 앞에 통만 매번에 그 요지 용된 게 마음바나 단다 가진 바도 봐도스테 상다 견한다 량용 겨울만 먹고 차르마도 간사 매버 차야지 오마라 어때인데 소소데 자천 부셔비 삼당도 초치네 초치네 메다바레스 고 깨지 요지 선지 때데 공가지 하고도 미리지 개비나 이나 초치네 고 균디 소소 tido nyonge ngama tido nyonge de tanda nyo tene lo chunjo kane ame khobena de tido nyo ke tengi mendo ade ina je yonga rwa a to che yang do tenge chire de yora ti ende soso dewa da dunge de gyudan de so jachem bu shebje re de ora chendi kyangyan mare chendi kyangyan ina de so chara chendi gang gebje gang ya ane de gangbe ba she de shanda samul ma dong she de chendi kyangyan ya bu yong samul dong 티 소들 개요 말에 소산 티 말에 티 딸에 요래 티 치마 요래 티 인도자고 천대 소소 파만나시 소소 tin치시 가려는 딴 남기 tin치시도 맞지기 와라 다이나 뜻사 마에 미마부시 마 tin치가요 말에서 그 가르 tin치를 세도하면 제 가서래 삼릉원에 다는 tin치부래 담보냐데 소소 류데 신해데 류데 콘sulten 존로와 콘조카리네 맨데 소소를 삼다오라 류디 존에 거기나 대디네 쉬워지 단 노브로 쉬워지 삼체 야그라 아마데 삼기라 칼라사지 계체도베 가다라 쳔데 티치라 심마 펜토인데 지금 데데게요 말에 나는 코랑 면에 빼 티삼기도 단디 로존에 야그라 쉬워지 제위나 삼기와라 어떤데서 짱하다 마드 천지를 샤네 시와라 티네시 마주에 심지어 말에서라 겨왕가마 장매서네 마케팅 최소 삼계는 만 천디 만나시죠야 야 디멤버 코란 파이 삼계네 야 디면은 정보를 된데 삼계네 되라 그때 최소 저 최소는 어때나시 마주에 제요 말에 저 삼다나 삼데 근데 심지어 탐제 말시바 시테템바 파르시바 자오르시바 자무시바 가리나 소소섬을 가래 가시에 텐데 삼다이라 저가마 탐에 버세 텐데고 텐데 인도네 심지어 강가 소소들 저와 연결이 차기도 단단 아주 내신 되면 되신다 계기 때문에 대금에도 강가 교황아마 파마다 시 메르시게네 년대식시제 여기에 단다 가인지 하고 말아 단다 소소 티도한도 되게 기대 나메라 하고나 어버 다티르샤 삼 시비지 소용그라 디미오에데 코티르마도 멤버케 말와 사티나신 심제 데데데 소소 카티 이나 지소시 계속데 팬통게다 팬통의 콘주 텔레테네 초고야 세지레 되어라 진전 개버자식도 파마마주베가 이나 찍질로 로바제 찍질이한테 삼시나 지소 지 팬도 전에 단다보도 한대거라 나라준 전불이 당부대디 대사 강바다 람바다 지가와요래 저 심지어 당도내 시제 잡으러 된데다 시도가 급제 포지수기 때라 다삼로다네 대화대 동에 맞았는데 야제 누구누구 지게 질때 삼로다 깨서 이게서 신다 단다 남을 пер게를 줄지기 와를 가게 주시기도 야제 누하고 대화다 텐데 동에 텐데 여사 되게 찍실래 로봇이 용대 와라 어때인데 근데 삼월단데 심지어 상만 드레메 도시 멤버즈 소선들 텐데 니슈 근데 네티나시 마주 심지어 매버레 삼저는 심지어 탐제 마르시 바세로 티용거라 삼월단도 알아 대체 텐데 텐데다 두구레 삼 라게 파말라야 여원도네 디그마레 삼다 텐데 티나시 상마치 버레 삼 탐제 된다 삼월단 초진에 대체는 삼단게 와라 초진에 텔레원 번노 삼월단다 자체로 다지 라데원도라 동에 메도로 와서 라 동에 청주지나 바세고도 와서 대화 청주지나 두고도 와서 티나시 초아데 강가를 와서 와서 되라 다다시 초아데도 용견 양바데 대화 개신부도 동에 배 전화 선서 라와 여버데 집어로 도당 신내시레도 요 말을 신다나마 소수의 개신부지 신다 단단한도 삼삼을다 도당 신뢰도 고파 메르서 신다사 진짜 삼기와라 뭐 뒤인도 가서 지롱그 말에서 다다 신도 냠반에 당부지도 매대 공원 대다 동해 냠반에 탐제다 있어 와서 대원들을 동해 매도가 랑다 찍버리 섬 랑게 대화되네 두고도 대화에 베시나 두고도 강에 베시나 세고도 디나시 셴 랑게 통대 무슨 통대 동해도 동해 손에 대해서 잘했어 되게 건조 대화에 베시 좁자래서 근데 섬을 따지 다시 냠바스 아니 다시 제와서 다 도만 매번에 제대로 소소게 시시시구로 왔으나 저랑 제시시도 도만 매번에 쓰는 영영 말에 단다봐도 저랑 약속에 줄도 왔어요. 어떻게 돼서 다들 삼을 땅다 거란데요 말에 다 삼을 땅다 제법이 없어요. 딱 신체시라 단다봐도 소소게 시시시 소소 땅다를 신다 배주체 삼을 땅이어라 다들 멤버체 신게 시시시 신게 좀다 중계랑 지시오서 다 삼을 거란 제법이 없어요. Tene shine juwa nuyari, te mato tari mendo si taksha nyambi kone semke si tende shine kikitwa. O te ende, chunde menga tundo taksha nyambi kone semke tu nambi nga zo lo chang samlo tangande. Ta yajen ruwa mendo samke o mara. Kaze samlo tanga te zage yajen ruwa de ora, nipa cher ruwa ora. Namsan hobde kala samlo tanga tanga namsan chike yungu mara. Mimbe na nima shara na shi namsan tende yunga se yo mara. 로 콤베체스 도르 토마 메바는 독초딜로 콤데요라 이 양다고 버텔로 콤야데 칼레 용구라 제가 이내 야젠 루 예삼네 니리니리나 삼나 아니 야구요 동안에 코네 페로 오 텐데 삼을 단데 semje 탐제 그때 좀 계획고서 연대 군대 이제 간사실은 거야 자기 예산 대체도 단단네 아니 샤라 저와 방에도 펜바 주발 소발 소연네 네 털도 semje 탐제를 펜바 주네 동해 탐제도 대화 탐제로 뭐 탐게 nipa yonsu tsokpa chigini te chedo tende gyurje ge lamga ge rinpa kare samlo tanda rinpa kare ne tezo rinpa shindo teba je samba je komba che ne changi yin sam te chedo che yin sam kulo seta ne samba shos ota ranga kaan te diyo che lam digri nga kore jan mabu shegde ya
No. So here, when it comes to how we need to think, we need to consider impermanence, right? The fact that we are not going to remain, and we change moment to moment to moment. But despite the fact that we recognize that kind of impermanence, we also have a sort of continuity, right? The continuity of our mind is not destroyed, say, at the end of this life, but this subtle consciousness will continue on, will keep going. And so here in Buddhist thinking, we recognize that there is impermanence that's in this moment to moment change, but there is also a kind of continuity, a kind of this mind doesn't have any sort of beginning. And when we think about it in that way, we need to recognize this sort of vastness, right? When it comes to thinking about, like for other non-Buddhist schools, they might think only of this life, like, oh, there's just the span of this life, so enjoy it, have happiness, and there's nothing beyond, and so forth. But we as Buddhists, we recognize that there is this kind of continuity to mind, even though, for example, we don't necessarily remember the sufferings that we experienced while we were in the womb or while we were a child. We had those kinds of experiences. There's this continuity of consciousness that goes moment to moment. And so when we have that kind of recognition that expands our perspective, we can also begin to see the kind of ways in which we are connected with other sentient beings. When we think about training the mind in bodhicitta, there is first recognizing that all sentient beings have acted as our mothers, right? So this is just an example. We don't necessarily have to take the mother. There are some, particularly in our modern world, who sort of take issue with this. They say, well, oh, my mother wasn't that kind. But even when we think about the very body that we have, it was dependent upon the body of another. A mother had to keep you in her womb, sort of taking care of you. And even if after that, you don't feel like she did such a great job, our very existence is dependent upon another sentient being. And so here, reflecting upon the kindness of, it could be your mother, or it could be someone else, like your father or a friend who has acted with great kindness toward you, when you begin to recognize the kind of span of the lifetimes that we have taken, you begin to see that, well, every single being has acted in that capacity. There are countless lives. I have taken countless lives lives. And therefore, although I might not recognize it, every single being I interact with has acted in that capacity. I mean, imagine when we are able to have that awareness, the way that we look differently at a being we encounter, when we think, oh, they acted as my kind mother in the past. And really, when we think about the sort of special kindness of other sentient beings, we are very much interdependent upon others, even beyond just recognizing the kindness of our mother and so forth. But all of the kinds of food and shelter and so forth that we enjoy comes from others. Really, it was from the point of our desire not to suffer and our wish to be happy that we have improved our society, have developed and so forth. And so all of the kinds of things that we enjoy are dependent upon others. We aren't unconnected with these other sentient beings. And so we should have an interest in accomplishing their aims, in accomplishing their happiness and repaying that kind of kindness. Now, this is a way of training the mind that is good for us, but those of sharper faculties often think about the equality of our basic being, right? That all sentient beings want to have happiness and all sentient beings wish to be free from suffering. As Shantideva has said, since I and other beings, both in wanting happiness, are equal and alike, what difference is there to distinguish us that I should strive to have my bliss alone? So when we recognize that every other sentient being is sentient, as in has feelings, isn't like a rock or a stone or something, but rather they want to have happiness and want not to suffer just as we do, we can begin to see the importance of recognizing and acknowledging the feelings of others, really, too, seeing how it is that our self-cherishing, our seeing ourselves as most important and only thinking about ourselves, like where has that really gotten us? Has that really been of benefit to us? And so when we come to have this kind of recognition of the happiness and suffering of others, and really based upon this recognition that our self-cherishing attitude hasn't helped us, but rather to cherish others would be what would bring us benefit. What would happen if I switched those kinds of attitude? We can begin to see how it is that we train our minds in the method of equalizing and exchanging self and others. And this is something where we need to train our mind, but we shouldn't think that, oh, I'm not improving at this. We will improve if we take the time to think about it, but it's not something that is instantaneous. It's not like flipping on a light switch and all of a sudden the darkness is gone, but rather when we do this day in and day out on an everyday basis, then yes, we will improve. We will begin to get rid of that self-cherishing attitude and cherish others more. And so thinking in this way, like I am wanting to be of benefit to all sentient beings, I'm going to strive to attain this state of Buddhahood, a state of Buddhahood in which I have eliminated all faults and developed all good qualities and have the capacity to be able to lead and benefit other sentient beings. In order to do that, I'm going to work on my mind. I'm going to train my mind. And in order to be able to train my mind, I need to learn the various instructions. And so here I am going to listen to these teachings on the precious Garland by Venerable Nagarjuna with the intention of training, developing my own mind in order to become a perfectly enlightened Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So please set such a motivation for listening to these teachings.
Oh yeah, 당연히 대리해서 서로가 겹치더라. Oh yeah, 지우주 숨게 가세다 세대로. 어디 야.
No.
Oh yeah, 당연히 가르쳐도 생각한다셔야 돼. 아주 되셔요라. 손남다 시기 초세도 쉬어요라. 자 초니 사버들이야 아니 티모에 배요래. 시 배요들이야 티모에 배서래 티모에 연대가다. 티모 많이 봐야 된다셔. 니르시도 티모에 연대셔라. 니 개발전지인데 개발전지인데 니수생활에 시 티모 지단에 티모 연대 나요래서 티모 많이 봐야 되다면은 니수생활 요래 티셔대요라. 뒤나네 따던데 가발레도스나 오야 저래 니바 짐버셔가 뭐 어디 다들 땅마들 디셔서와 계속해서 숨들이야 가르쳐고 그래서나 아니디 가르쳐라 뭐 롱주라 소바 레버츠네 이 샤리아 짐바동을 소바 되셔서 네 땅마들이야. 어때서 쉐어라다 들이야. 세고라 소바 아니 시슈 소르렘베 소수 파마다 녀데다 가서레 롱바피 내가 지금做的 저절로 그셉션에 펜도야 부터부터서 아니 진바다 밑쪽부터 졸이야 진바다한다 근데 셉치하고 쇼를 셔라 다들 또바고 요라 아니 다 진바다에 뭐 보면은 다 손님 사야지 요 말을 배서래 가격처럼 진바도 세라 진바를 저 영어 보면은 아니 손님 손님 소소 유래에 탑식게 요 말을 배서나 어디 빼야 보여래서 왜라 티장장 말해서래 아티 시에도 티장장이 배삼을 진바장장시에 삼겨라 제 학벌 요에 빼던 봐서 텔레 학벌 신바다에 세대치다 lonju shimba yunata yende yin tana ko tigora penshura mena tele tange tele chesu iranchene chimbe chandu yore mena sosole tende chune ngeti tange yin samsa tongsin pena yore yiji mejingwe butaya mena ngale tende chune ngeti tende chesare tipende chesare samsa samna tie tongsin pe yore tie so de tongsin pe yore chesa ko karsura lonju mendaya chimbataya mebe chike yo mare susu kanga yeba chike pesha chire chimbato taya mena ti yakuje tambe na tayi yungure shenda chimbatanga chesu yura chena pechi dada tugura kashe randa tadure tiyidu kasura chimbar che baji yamda tele yore se ngobataya mena ya tele lakbe ni shenda sunam ji sosaye tabshi yore ti karesna chiuzu sumje kase tase chiuzu suru chema chosa ki tamarab de yosara te chiuzu sumje kase tase chiuzu sumje kase ta nyeri tu sumchimbales chiuzu se tinalia kala chone de da chema da de je tiga chema naga medo tuchu se chone shoge kala ta ningun kala ta konda kala ta inaya sigora sonam chambu kewrese tele kya lagwa sigora chiuzu sumje kase ta nyeri tu sumchimba wese chamba yuzam tangjege sonam dala charmebe sumje tamjege tanda samna dana tewa kyudan dana wasa tunga da tewar gyurje sambe samlu shubshibu chidna yina tele kya ni manga sonam sagre sigora kun negab sam maro babe tewa tamje da dana tunga tamje da tena sam chamba da tewa samlu shubshibu chidna yina ti penche yungure sigora chiuzu sumje kase ta nyeri tu sumchimba simbe kyangse ane kase chamba yuzam tangjege sonam dala charme tese tiende del de sungudwa dredu sen jayagda kala sigora dredu nikare trecho tade kezere tese papa ne tese chora jayadlia ki sing tu shi chete na nyungma ta de gan do jaya chora trecho kilo chisu kire pese kilo chisu kire trechelia trechu kilo chuze lu ne zona choya yebe tendege telia chiuchu sigora tende sumge sigora tende sumge ne me mambo tonda mambo sa yungudwa dedu ge 초아시 조사들 시거라 지우쳐 시거라 어때나랴 내가래 데테 킬로 주 화전도 게텐데 숨게 나라서 다 킬로 주주 제부 숨게서는 내 마음 쇼스 당게라 어때나 처마시다 시 쇼게 건다 강가 반접도 받는데 당게 이거도 칼라 마버스네 메켜부터 요네 쇼게 땅도 땅 집에 땅 빼가오요라 어떤데 소리 땅한테 근데 연구하라는 만 숨비에 가서다 처만 나다 메다 대야 섭소제 미껴보 사이에 섬 탑자된데 멤버 처만 나가면다 메다한테 땅치라 지우주 숨비에 가서다 일이 뒤숨도 쇼게 갈라 인공 건다때 심바이나서라 대화다 대되게 가서 뒤숨도 심바야서 대 손은 빼 전부 사그래서 와라 lonju chenpu yuwa sunam chenpu milipendo chenpu shida desa. Tile jang simchen dewa dan dende ki chamba yuwa 심지 탐지에 대화단 대고래 정말 강에 매고 동에 매고래서 근데 상로 숙천비스단에 잠바다 싸와 숙천비스 공부에는 뒤서는 첨부사 그래서 소나 망사 그래서 와라 다다기 첨부단게 돼 다디 심한데 대화단 대대지 잠바 유좀 탕지 라 그 수남 달라 차르메 표도세 어디지 주나
So here then, picking up in the text, and this is verse 284 in Geshe-la's version, but 283 in ours. We may have done this last time, but we'll review it. So here we are talking about the kinds of the need to accumulate the collection of wisdom and merit. And we were talking about the various sort of qualities that are common to both of those collections, and then the sort of uncommon, particular, special qualities of them. And in particular, above, ending in verse 282, it had been talking about the kinds of generosity that a king should engage in should he have resources to do so. So providing for the poor and giving material kinds of generosity. So the question then arises, well, what if you have no possessions to give? Is it then that there's no way to be generous? And so the reply then comes in 283, where it says that, well, actually, there is a kind of generosity that is superior to that. You can gain a great benefit first from rejoicing in others' generosity. If you have a sincere attitude of rejoicing in that, it's said that you could gain an equal amount of merit. And even if you have only $1, say, to give away, to give that away, or even if you have nothing to give away, to train in this attitude of giving away, of developing that sort of ability to not hold things really tightly, but rather to part with them, to be able and willing to give them to others. And so here, it isn't that generosity isn't possible should you be lacking material resources, but actually you can attain very great results from generosity of other kinds, like the generosity of love. And so here it says, giving the food of 300 stew pots every day, 3 times a day, cannot compare to even a part of the merit of just a short moment of love. And so here, the kind of giving of, say, and here it gives a very sort of detailed description of what this food offering entails, like sort of the weight, the measurement of the amount of rice and so forth. Like, so it would be like there's sort of different boxes, sizes that they would have had. So like probably about 10 kilos worth of rice. And then we have these 300 pots filled with that and all kinds, it says here, like 60 different vegetables and so forth. And so that kind of material offering is something that is temporary, right? It fills people's stomachs. But something like the attitude of love is a higher kind of generosity. So here we see that there are certain like religious traditions who are very committed to this kind of generosity. Like in the Punjab, there are those that offer food to the poor and do so on a daily basis, a huge offering of food. And to do such an offering here, describing it, it's a quite extensive offering. Again, 300 stew pots filled with like 10 kilos of rice, and not just sort of poor people's food, but also with all these different vegetables and things, making a very nice kind of respectful food offering is something that would gain one a great deal of merit, but just a short moment of love, that wish that, and particularly if it extends to all sentient beings, may they have happiness, that is something that the merit of which cannot be measured.
Oh yeah. 다들 정말 솔로가 저식 장하더라. 삼이 잠바를 주다 잠바 공부 팽이도 시작해라. 잠바 공부할 때는 팽이도 되고 그래서 삼이 잠바를 줘봐다. 라게 심지어 상말이야 대화다 트레너서 동해다 트레너서 잠바다 저 공부이나 아니 현대 상말 소설이 안 되어 생겨다 진짜 용어요라. 삼이 현대 저 소설이 잠바다 저와 그 삼부탁을 말도 너밖에 삼부탁 말을 그 테마티 세상에 너밖에 거라. 미tum밖에 맨은 너밖에 그렇게요 말아. 삼이 잠바 줘봐다. 하다 메뚜도 소설 잠바 줘듯이 가셔를 가서 치네 어야부치기도 삼 제시유라시 손집시그라. 어때면 미망이 동대라부터 너밖에 괜찮으나 그 심지 탐지해야 되는 건주제 사무다이네 너밖에 총을 지기 와래 좀더들 셔야 와래 동대도 처지 질 너밖에 얘기했어 니 지글랑아 너밖에 도서 말해서 거가 됐던달래 참잘 공부제 대기도 세 진짜 총을 좀 셔야 와래다 어디에 놓고 봐 심지 도서 상망을 잠재 공셔나 건조가 또 서로 하고 있어라 아니 봐 수점 가서 너밖에 총을 두고 와래 원내 전제를 다는 알아서 양콜파 알아 단들적으로 마도 야구 시전에 엄에 소화시다 용유시거라 뒤개셔야 말이야 원내잖아 뉴지 코메디 봐 콜 뉴지 공사나 내가 총 두고라 삼이 잠바를 좋아하던 것에 소설 소식이다 라도 매주 소잡아요 대다장에 송하던 것에 대다장 라려 송주체 로버체게를 차요래 이대와나 소소 셈대버 연구하래 대화만 연구래 가져이나 내가 집에 sama 가오게를 쓰지 요네 대화만 연구하래 다 현달이야 공도가 저 차도 남준의 시대나네 선배매 집에서 투제 대고라 팀에는 투고든 시요 말아 근데 대망와 가려서 이디와다 대망다 두당 천개 내매다 두당 천을 써봐 근데 내가 용마라 반내가 맞지 잠부세니 야부세나 수에 밴도레세나 마도 내가 씻고도 용마라 다시나 도글로 써봐 근데 생각 용마를 천자로 써봐 근데 그 차와신게 용마르세 용유차그라 두당 천개 내매다 아니 다들 가르쳐서 되어다 계시게 두더라 장애도서 단단히 편의도 시작이 왔다 샴바 공배 편의에 되시게 그래 네 매번 돈톱다 수수 단단하고 지고나 치소나 수수 내가로 지고나 대 매주시다 제매고 야부신 돕고래 미 타도 생겨도 내가 쟁게 매버시 밑도 좋고 수수 잠바 공부 때는 게 지는 밑에 통되고 그래 차고 거기에 저 로봇 진도를 이렇게 차고라 이 대화 가시네 매번 돈톱다 상배지대게도 끼워친 것들 사이 상발라서 봤던 데게 직단이 학교도 그래서 거라 네 근데 저를 조장하세 세들라 고 타르발라서 봤던 데 토마토나 잠바 공발할 때는 편의 개부터 톱톱 그래서 잠주 위원대 개토보세 단단 따들 장가 잡서 라미 잠바 줘받아서 어때 위원대 개부터 톱 그래서 어야 뜻이라나
So then, in the following two verses, it describes the benefits of love. Again, having this kind of attitude of saying, may others have happiness, may they be free from their suffering, and so forth. This attitude of love is described, and here I'm just going to say that the verses 284 and 285 seem to be sort of translated together, so the order will be slightly different. So even if not liberated, you will attain these 8 excellent qualities from practicing love. Gods and humans will love you, and they will also protect you. You will have peace of mind and much happiness, and not be harmed by either poison or weapons. And you will effortlessly attain your aims and be reborn in the realm of Brahma. So here, when you have an attitude of love toward others, there are going to be fewer who want to cause you harm. I mean, there are times when we will have disagreements, but in general, if you are going out into the world with love for other sentient beings, then, as it says, gods and humans will love you, particularly like those sorts of gods or powers that are on the sort of virtuous white side. But even those who might wish to cause harm normally. And there are like kind of stories about this where others were trying to cause harm to someone, like ghosts or demons or other kinds of beings. And due to the meditator's power of love, those forces were unable to harm them. You don't generally, when you have an attitude of compassion and love toward other sentient beings, they are going to harm you less. And not only harm you less, they will also protect you, as it says. So that's the second of these 8. And then you will have a peace of mind and much happiness. I think those are 3 and 4. And here it describes, it explains, I mean, when we treat others with love and we have that kind of view toward them, we ourselves experience more happiness, right? More peace of mind. If we remain as we just normally are, feeling jealous of others, competitive, we have hatred, we have this kind of pride and so forth, that is not a happier state. But when we develop love, we experience more sort of mental peace as well as, again, happiness in terms of we're not having others harming us as much. And so too, as it continues into the next line, you will not be harmed either by poison or weapons. Again, if you are not going out and hurting others, it's much less likely that you will be the subject of harm from them. They aren't going to try to undermine you or hurt you with poison and weapons and so forth. And so too, you will effortlessly attain your aims. When you set out to accomplish something, if you do it with a really good kind of an attitude and a mind that has love in it, rather than being motivated by, say, jealousy or competitiveness or anger, you will accomplish according to your wishes. You will be able to effortlessly attain your aims. And so too, in the future, you will be reborn in the realm of Brahma. And here the line, even if you're not liberated, really comes down at the end here. So even if you don't attain liberation, you will attain rebirth in the realm of Brahma.
뭐야? 다든다 그 전부 공내 편하게 또 그랬어. 신딜레랑 때보다한테 정말 그래서 깨워 치말하네. 이제 라에 성부께 와서 편하게 그래서 뒤셔서라. 다든네 솔로가 결정되리라. 뒤던당 아주 뒤셔가라 가서래. 가서래. 수남다 시기 사발에 때네 편해야 돼. 투모와 배영한테 시작하라. 또 투모 많이 bes는다 어디 가서 개발자니 배영이 수행하시거라. 뒤시거라. 단도디 배영이 버들어도. 또 숨버 시방가 봐서 방치용 그래. 또 숨버디 시거라. 배영 숨버디 시거라. 심지어 남네 장주도 심기 주제 땡제 나서더라. 아니 주wan 개부 딸 때문에 장주 심리 따도 톱세더라. 어디 가서 그래서나 심지어 남네 장주도 라네메베 장주도 쓰거라. 심지어 남네 장주도 심계 주신 라네메베 장주도 대과 첨부 쓰거라. 심지어 남네 장주도 심계 주신 심지어 탐지의 돈도 산재지 고반 토바 제고래 심지어 탐지의 돈도 두통되게 경구세 연대 근데 이제 탈심배 기부지 제고래서 근데 지금 인삼서 삼로 따야 될 쓰거라. 심계 주신 현달에 장주 심계 주 소소 장주 심 공사 심계 주신 대전나 대스 장주 심계 탐지의 돈도 산재 고반 토바 제 대시도 단단히 지레를 장고래서 봐 템부체네 파람네 현달에 람나 쓰거라. 주wan 개부 딸 때문에 장주 심리 따도 톱스. 근데 마음바나 소소래 장주 심 리원분에 템부 냠바 메고 어쩐데 되네 토바 요크레서 와라. 장주 장주 심리 따도 톱스 토반 요그레서. 내도 심지어는 장주도 심계도 주 현달이야. 장주 다기시와나 시준데 맹아도 다시 냠절어서 버틴데 군데 심계도 주 로아테 미냠제 템보 용해 탭시체 제체변에는 산주 무슨 리원부 다부 템보체 미냠바테 게토 그래서 오라 라니키 데다 치마타도 토보스 제디서 간지 산주 예심네 라니키 데다 치마 소소교라 샹레 텐데야 케초베나 소소교라 테도 란다 샹이가 교레 산주 신 템보 톱토 그래서
So those two verses then described the eight benefits of love, of, like, for example, being happier and more at peace in this life, experiencing less harm from others, the kind of benefits in future lives as well, such as being born in the realm of Brahma. And so here, as we turn now to verse 286, this again, is within the kind of what we are talking about are the two accumulations. I mean, we went through the kind of common qualities of the collection of merit and the collection of wisdom. And here it's talking in particular about the kind of the special qualities of each of those, in particular, the accumulation of merit. And so here it's going through 25 of these, and we are now on the third, and they'll come in order. And so it says in 286, if you lead others to develop bodhicitta and then make it firm, you will always have bodhicitta as stable as the king of mountains itself. And so here, if one has this attitude, the mind of awakening, of wishing to attain unsurpassed enlightenment, this is again wishing to become a being who has eliminated all faults and developed all good qualities in order to be able to be of greatest benefit to other sentient beings. If one develops this within oneself as well, seeks to help others develop it in their mind, this will lead to our own bodhicitta becoming firm and not degenerating in any way. So to lead others, to instruct them in, say, the sevenfold cause and effect method, or the method of equalizing and exchanging self and others, to help others to develop bodhicitta, as well as ourselves making our own bodhicitta firm, this leads to us always attaining it in the future, having this as something stable throughout many lives.
Oh, yeah, Tadder. Don't know about the shake, do I? Oh, yeah. Tadder the tuition. Tebe, me come to me, you said it. Right. Make a pambata, Pana, ne, we agree with that. There were trouble sober, make a panchata, there were trouble, Kiwa trouble sober, to the Teba Yunas, Kitty Yolando to the Teba Yunas, or Tebe me come to me, and me come back and you that to sober, kick my rest, Mount Father Milly Kiri, Karas, and I could take by the Pankiwa, the Chindi took it off. Shana Sawala sober, make a chuti Pankiwa, chuti took it on it. Father made a really kick him out on his only kick my rest, don't make use. Oh, so Janana Tebe. Teba de Yadin Kari Kigres to my Mekumbar Doge, Domeju, Mekum Benella, Kigmares, Joachimando Maresa. Oh, teacher, yeah, Tati Dura, Tanga with the Yamdo Lapsana. About the Kares and Semje, and a Kare and Draw, Sambo Draw, say, Timje draws, or me, some sort of colossus, you know. Timje draw somebody draws a sutim shivara, Shella Chawapang, but a sutim day. Draw somebody. Sutim jail, Lami draw somebody, Tobo, Ching Avatichera. That took by the Locari of Dosena. Tombani la Combayese, Tombaji comes on the Sura, Chunam Kunla Chame Topse. Tombani comes on the Chunam La Shenja de Chodru, de Segura. Shenja de Chodro and Shenja should a man and a contest of the young Mara. So sit that they do my Susan Shan Toya de Chagbayuna, Toya de Yungura, Chagway men and Toy on the Kayomara. What you do, Gaza? Shouldn't Jenny Lamin draw some botobo, say. Oh, tis a thought to weather. Yes, Timje draw some botob, said. Timje saw draw some bottom draws it this one. That took what they then took what the sugar, the Kebar Shaggy, and then took what the sugar. They got shake those enough. Don't buy any combaye, Shenum Kola Chame tops, or to the Tombani Combala 10 years, Tungi Combura, Tungi Comna, a combaye, and you then carry midday show laya, midday show dribe, Kewa, Le Minyamshe. Bayo Tobadas, or the Mijin Chata want to do Maris, Kevalia, substitute Chigresua. Tombani comes on a touchida, Dira. Tras and get never used Rangune Shivachi Yevesundes Comnane, Conto de Ungora. Jesus some Getagi or some thoughts the Kajashana Medra, Chigemachi, Resicia, and so some Gipa, talk about some remado. You could run around the tree, could touch a she or Marasamna. Conto Sasate or the Mavis of the Chagrin. I'm young as a conto set the caution. 계산 그 가신지 집시오지 조조사를 삼겨라. 오늘 전에 비게 그 속보다 샘도 저한테도 가르다나 그 자연스티 니스랑 함께요 말. 그저 제주 라면다 서서 삼을다 러파 다샤라. 달래 따고 자래 마도 이랑한테 들어왔는데 저 말을 삼나 달래 콘도 요에데 총도라. 이동화세대 아다 소소 세보지 유진원에지 삼 다때진데 요 말에 삼 가사를 지내 가리나 치소다 나게 나자다 때서 삼을다 때서 미도 발라서 어떤데 삼을다 야 때서라 때네 딱 봐서 소소 sem기 봐 딱이 얼마도 착배 이 랑원에 들어지네 가디나 착배지 공부를 차야냐가 와라 가디나 되게 기계 말아 소소 sem기 봐서 서셔되니 진짜 쇼심 비게라 sem기 상로마다는 당령도 대토도 그 랑원에 들어가게요 말아 소소 sem기 봐 딱이 삼 딱 봐서도 매 삼나네 착배 이데 랑원도 들어가 남주 삼분나 시대 되게 말아 다 가를 사대를 삼자네 차이지 봐 따도래 센치디 매바다 하고라 따도 전에 디르셔 말아 이나 그게 깨지 셰단다 류기 쩌버 셰단다 니머시지 셰버지 텔 때는 소소르파 따셔거라 따고 삼르마도 유고는 매바서는 콘도다 차고 유다 강가 초도라 어디서 거라 동방인의 공바에 남그 처음에 톱서 남바콘도 유래 차과 매버데 톱그래 달아야 고 다른 집 매버데 톱그래서 동방에 또봐 공바에 유대 미드초 디베 되다 라 니가래 메냐베 밤에 토바 바위에 토반 조르스 어디 봐도 실람이야 좀 봐도
No.
어떠셔
So here again, we're going through these kinds of 25 different sort of particular qualities of, I believe it's the accumulation of merit. And so here in verse 287, beginning with the first line, it says, "Through faith, you do not take rebirths that lack freedom." So here, faith in particular. So among the various sort of accumulations, faith in particular, the kind of faith in virtue and non-virtue, as in doing the 10 non-virtues, you have faith, you have confidence that that will bring bad results. And by doing the 10 virtues, you have a kind of faith that that will bring good results. That sort of faith leads you to be born in a state that has freedom, right? Because by acting according to the ethical conduct, or really virtue and non-virtue, you will attain the kind of state that has freedom. And then it says in the next line, and this is the fifth of these 25 special qualities, "Through ethical conduct, you have fortunate rebirths." So by acting ethically, you obtain a good rebirth as a human or a god. That's the basis for attaining such a rebirth. And then in the next two lines, it describes the sixth of these 25 qualities, where it says, "Through developing your understanding of emptiness, you attain non-attachment to all things." So here, the meditation on emptiness is something that really causes all of the sort of adverse factors to qualities to lessen, right? So, and it causes us to gain a kind of conscientiousness, and awareness of what we are doing. And so one way it is in which we use this understanding of emptiness is like when we hold someone, say, to be our enemy, it seems like really right there we could point to, oh, that is my enemy. There's like someone that is solid, that is autonomous, that exists by their own power. But when you are able to recognize how it is that actually enemy is something that is just a projection of your mind. It's something that is an elaboration, or your mind's projecting onto that particular object. And when we can see that they're actually empty of existing in the way that they appear to us, we can't point to anything within that basis of designation that is our enemy, but rather because of various situations and causes and conditions coming together, I am projecting, oh, that is my enemy. harmony. And so too when it comes to something pleasant, when we see external forms or have thoughts in our mind that we see as being particularly pleasant, by contemplating that they don't actually exist in the way that they appear, either meditating on their unpleasantness or really getting at their emptiness, that these are just projections of mind. They don't exist in the way that they appear. This is then, as it says, you attain non-attachment to all things by having that recognition of emptiness. Your sort of reactions, the kind of clinging to various objects as it appears, we will reduce that by when we recognize that this is something that is merely designated by mind as a projection of mind. We reduce that kind of attachment, and by reducing our attachment, our clinging to things, we likewise reduce that kind of anger. It is as much as we cling to something as an object of our attachment, so strong will be our hatred or anger when something threatens that. So by contemplating emptiness and reducing our attachment, we also reduce things like anger that come from that.
뭐야, 잠깐만 내서. 잠깐만.
Yomepe,
다 요메 벤네 세대로.
lare,
요메 벤네 텐덴 토세. 가르치고래서는 최년발라서 봐체. 근데 유주 요로. 지금 많이 받이 인도 인바 많이 받도 qab여줘라 유주체서라. 네 요메벤네 잠바단 담바 토베세. 잠바 정보 체제 코세. qab여다 텐데 체죠 말아. 토바네 이 슝바 토보 이 슝보 미베 정보 담바라시 그 카두 sabsera 가지고나 따다 마도 지금 유주도 시행 고고단 매제. 그래. 다 개발들 가르쳐 보도서나 신발 제별로 또 톱. 다 때려와 쳐라서 버든지 아니 쳐리야 신발 제별 토바체 삼바체 삼을다네 로드던데 메시로 전부터 그래 제라. 신발 제별 로드 톱세. 근데도 다더니 그거에 다 당가되면 되어서시. 꾸디 제별 전도 안 돼서 그 가르쳐 그래서는 담배 당 마을이야 꾸디 제별서. 최나 마을이야 구십시바 되게 아니 최제도 또 받았다마. 그 돈이를 준 거 알아? 최라 돈이 그거요. 근데 마을에 돈이를 붙여 그게 최동을 붙여요나. 디셰바데 판도 셰요 거 알아? 그 생견당 최를 지동스 매나니 고셰나 남매당 그러마도 돈다 신부게 찍 말아. 어디서 그래? 담배 최나 마을에 꾸디 제별서. 저는 또 받아. dembadas. 다 주부들 가도서나 최송 시럽제도 교세더라. 대가서를 퇴배 최 송외에서 퇴배제내로 기대게 란도라서 버텨도 야부 송배 시럽제도 교로 아니 란도르진에 상마신게 시럽제도 교로에서 근데 대제를 가르쳐 주지마. 최년바다 침바다서 최년바다 침바다 집에 매버 셔바에 최년바다 싫어. 네 산제 남다 드바니 드바니도 토바 요르스 곱주바더라. 비카서도 최년바다 최게 침바다 셔베세세 소소 최년 현달바 최셔바라 소바 셔베세 비큐라 소바 견게 드바 매버스 바 셔데 야 근데 여러 가시 급기라 상만nen가도 마셔베세 지단라셔 때는 비주치고라 초를 셈나치고라 초를 셈나치 번나 소케바다 지금 무케바다 또 nen가들 랍고 말아보고랴 nen가들 랍는 하다 찍바쳐 그래 근데 지금 말해 삼세 근데 미망보시 그래 랍두상 강갈라베 요 말다 강갈랍나 소소다 찍바쳐라네 결혼 얘기했어 하여튼 됐으니까 제 배제나는 단대보다 데리데 요 말봐 랍세데 가제시나 삼절람게 로서데 요 말도 그게다 데리데 요 말아 다 소다다 내가 진이되네 내가 도 감나마다 컨디션에 소소 통매가 사트데 삼게지라 다 철iten데 뇽뇽이래 이나 또 연구하라 아니까 서르다 가만나 대선서 최년마다 최게 심바 제베세세 비치라서 봐 경계 제바 매버 제바에 산제 남단 로바니 토바니 유로서 어디는 따버를 취냐야다 상계다 자주 선바다 추송게다 졸이야 냠도 아닌 로니 배 그거 토야기로요 그래서 그라 토버를 주시 셴 되베도 요도 토바기로 어때 마임 버스스인데 요도 토바야래 요라요 그래서 아니 그라 마차바네 마차베네 돈루테스 얘도 왜 어디 갈수록은 도요라 마차바네 돈루테스 도요리아 시다 차바면은 소소도 도요라 지도마송 삼상 같은데 시다테 연구마로 마차베네 쳐지 돈루테스 제지 전에 되잖아 semnamebegira senamebe longe pelsa senamene longe pelsa senamebe longe pewasa wa shenle chimbata wala sobati de chena semnashida machena shenle ko robaro chenge chene ko sosole me kala yude chu robo chenge yongo ra chende se ta kyawa chima chimbetebo longe pewada yoyongara mo tishiya senamebe longe pelsa kyawa chima Shibatanga Chimbane Chimbatan Tindashine, and Namshinani, Chimba Pusa, Kansa Kebarshan, Lasobat de Tomne, Tarvata Tabja Kimbato, Julian Dudas, Omajabana Yonguba, or Dineshi. And then Sena maybe Longe Pewa, answer, Chushibane, and they go, Naje maybe Zorgus. Then I get Chimba Machine, Zor Yugara. Naje Chimba Janga Chimba Chegosana, Messu. Shiratsiro Shigmaro, that is a Korea, she don't see some note. Kopaku Shepshan and goes to Shigmaro, so it's all of the Jurga Chasha, Chavara, Susun Najem Maje, Tambungo Neshavina. Najem may be told yours, me Chashas I told you there. Najem may be Kunji Kuve told you, say. Chunga Badilla Karimuta say, Shula Sube, Suntobo, say. Chola Sebe Sunduba, de Casirasina, Tongbani Chola Sebe, Ta Tongbani Soba Tende Comnera, Tilolia Woji Chawi Shawina, Michibe Suntobos, and Ishenda Nezu Kanga, Michibe Sons, Lola Simsa de Samazintum Gege, Suntobgresa.
Oh, yeah.
What did you say?
Yeah, diga.
This one.
Disa.
Oh, yeah.
So then picking up in the first line of 288, and this is the seventh of these 25, where it says, by not being deceptive, you become mindful. So by being sort of straightforward with people, by not pretending that something isn't is, or something that is isn't, by not being deceptive in any way, particularly with respect to the Dharma, you will have mindfulness and have this kind of upright sort of character. And then by through reflection, you attain intelligence. So through pursuing hearing and also reflecting and thinking, you will attain intelligence. And then through reverence, you will realize the meaning of the Dharma. So by having reverence and respect for the holy Dharma, as well as those who teach it, that is how you will gain realizations of the Dharma. If we don't have respect for something, if we don't actually hold it in high esteem, then we are much less likely to really pursue it earnestly. So here, we're likely to ignore things that we don't respect. So having that kind of respect both for the Dharma and the one who teaches it leads us to gain realizations. And then in the last line of 288, it reads, through preserving the Dharma, you will become wise. So by preserving that which we have heard, by holding on to it and protecting it, preserving it, we will then become one who is wise. And that is the 10th of these 25. And then the 11th comes in all of verse 289. It says, through eliminating obscurations in listening to and imparting the Dharma, you will quickly gain, gain the companionship of Buddhas and quickly fulfill your desires. So here, when it comes to listening and explaining the Dharma, one should eliminate any sort of obscurations to that, right? There are sometimes, particularly for those talking about those who are doing the explanation, more so in worldly matters, where they might not want to explain everything to their students, thinking like, well, if I teach them everything, then they're going to surpass me. They're going to be better than me. What will I have that's sort of the thing that I get to impart then? So how will I be superior to them if I really impart to them all of my knowledge? So maybe that is less common in the Dharma, but it is certainly something that should be eliminated. This sense of like, oh, well, how will I be the superior one if I teach everything to others? So then as well, again, we will gain the companionship of Buddhas and quickly fulfill your desires as well by acting in that way of eliminating obscurations with respect to our listening to and giving others the Dharma. And then in the first line of 290, which is the 12th of these qualities, it then says, through non-attachment, you accomplish your aims. So by not having attachment, particularly to like objects of the senses, you are able to accomplish your Dharma aims. And then the 13th quality, which then comes in the second line of 290, it says, through lack of greed, your possessions increase. So by getting rid of our kind of covetousness or greediness, that is how we increase our possessions, right? Wealth comes through giving, and as it says as well in the entry to the middle way, where Chandrakirti describes the way that we need possessions and wealth, and the way that we gain that is through the practice of generosity. So by being generous in a way where we're not stingy, we're not greedy, wanting to hold on to our own possessions, that actually increases the kinds of things that we enjoy. And then the 14th here is in the last line, and it says, the third line, through lack of arrogance, you will become prominent. So in particular, not seeking out to sort of be special or recognized, getting rid of that kind of arrogance or pride, that's actually how someone does attain prominence, attain a good status. And then in the last line, this is the 15th quality, it says, then through fortitude for the Dharma, like having forbearance or patience with respect to the Dharma. So this is particularly the kind of patience with respect to realizing emptiness. You attain the dharani of not forgetting. So this ability to retain everything that one has heard in terms of the Dharma.
Oh yeah, that's you do what it is. Oh, then Nimbunganam Chimbata Sudo. Nimbunganam Chimbata. Nicare Zilla Miji Chimbasa. Shinan Jibak Kangi Shibush get to the Miji Chimbatan. When I'm Muki of the joy at Chicky out of the chick to the Mitang never Jibushambu in a mound of the coverage of what you had to Sora. Mijiba Shibasa. Jiba Yunga concert, Mijiba Shimba Yeshe. Because Tunam Kunji, Mitsushi, Tobuchi, Chodujur. Tirava. Oh, did it. The Karsigorasana. Nimbunga Sichin said, Nimbunga to deal with the Tangajoda, Shemardas, Mala Sabatazuda. And the Karsidosana, Puramda, Shemarda, Transida, Timarda, Lanzala Soba, Nimbunganam, Shibaye, and Tala Soba, Jibe, Kelmala Soba, Mijiba Shibe. Try Jiba, you get Try Langa, Don Kuma Chapa, Jiba, you get to the Robashia Soba. Tresura. Jiba Kemachepa, Robashepa, Keroche, Susan Rosada, Robashe, Kelmase. So Chebaye, and Tunam Kunji Mitsushi, Toboshe Shodo, Tezukanga, Tunam Gene, Mitsushi, Top Chimbu Juragi, Chok to Juragi, Today Jula do good Esigora. That was Tama to the Kanga Ticheva Namsante Toba Esigo Mara, the Tobe Jula do good Esigora. Tobe Jula do good, that in my way you saw quite in the Yongra, or Jesigora. Jenny, shooting by the Karisitosana, Kuchu Kusumba de Rida, so 최대 마음에 정하다 member 다도 점하다 근데 마음에 두마리 심바에 사이 명이 토버리 줄세 어야 최대한테 다 산제 구수소대 요새도 마음에 정하다 마음에 여기 나와셔야 돼 럭셔리 같은데 member 다도 점하다 member 나군도 줄에 점해셔 시단코 점해대 도와날 때도 용도 님의 권을 tankabu nima sebu shidayene tremeke paku mare ko sebu yura nago shanane tele tremeke paku yara treme paku yara member dadu treme das marme domar shibaye o marme te tange melo sura sheme pae to da mar da num da tinde tawra ta tensa da log shuru tinde pandura domar shibaye sai meni tobar jos 사이 미긴 것이 토발이요. 주식을 해서라. 미긴 것이 원에 토발하다 신에다 라동도 공부라. 사이 미긴 것에서는 지단지 감지 수타라가가 통계된 데 누구요래. 됐어요. 토발이요. 야, 되지랍잖아.
So then the 16th quality then comes in verse 291, where it reads, through giving the 5 essences and fearlessness to those in fear, you will become impervious to all demons and the best of powerful beings. So here, by giving the 5 essences, and this is listed in the commentary as including like molasses, melted butter, honey, sesame seeds, and like salt, these various making those kinds of gifts, being generous with those substances, as well as by providing fearlessness to those in fear. So whether it is beings who are in fear because of, say, they are in a famine, or they are in danger of being carried away in a flood, or they are experiencing the ravages of war, by providing protection to those. Like, say, for example, someone has to travel through an area where there are lots of bandits and robbers and various enemies, to escort them through that kind of passage for their safety. This then leads to, again, being impervious to all demons and the best of powerful beings. Now here, all of these are describing how certain activities go toward the cause of attaining a particular quality. But we shouldn't think this is, like, again, an instant thing, that by just doing this, you will immediately obtain that particular quality. But rather, it is something where it is going toward the cause of developing that particular quality. And then in the next verse, and this is the 17th of these qualities, particularly referring to developing the divine ear, the divine eye. And so here again, we can see that to develop the divine eye, we need to have a combination, a union of calm abiding and special insight. Now, these other sorts of activities go toward the cause of developing that, but they aren't their actual, like, substantial cause. So through giving garlands of lamps to reliquaries, lights for those hindered by the dark, and oil for all those lamps, you will attain the divine eye. So here, giving light, and particularly this is referring to the older kind of styles where it would have been some sort of melted butter or oil. And this is something where there wasn't the tradition of giving lamps, offering those during the daylight hours. If the sun is out and you can see clearly, you don't need to offer such a lamp. But offering those lamps, lights, to those hindered by the dark. And in the past, it might have been oil lamps or butter lamps. Now we can maybe be offering electric kinds of things. This goes toward the cause of attaining the divine eye. And again, one should recognize that the real substantial cause of that is a union of calm abiding and special insight, but these help in that.
뭐야, 다 굽시굽시대 봐sol까. 최대 최바 러마단다 최대 데려야 최바다 러마다 지그라 기부다네 기부데 학과 겸내 등등등 세 근데 연구도 근데 앞이셔 주시라. 기부다는 비와 당 아니 동다 ngane piwa nga tongye la so ba tende sa haye nawa to ban yo sa haye nawe ngwe shi sa ji den ji kam ji ta tha ra kang ga musum do tongge jo ra nawe ngwe ta tha ra sa ma ha kong ge chi de le shi ne da la dong to ma do to yo de to be ju le du de sang go ra o ani ka ye chö den sembar de cha gen do ro mo da chö den le ya chö ba pu ye cha gen chi do ro mo da ji bu da ne piwa da dong da nga ne piwa la ye nawe ngwe shi to be ju yu bu de sa 아니 야 되지 어때 엄마 될 님도 러시네 주고 받으라 디 구주 공가더라 솔까 생제 추바 멜레이시 야라 냠바 나 메시 심네 제수 송외나 생제 심네 셰바톱 어데 되시도 갈성도스네 생제 추바 니바체바 멜레이시 현다게 Kön no duce bata kön to lingyo mare sera milenshese shara so ko shara re sera ngazu lab shara kambore sera kapare sera tede telo sera tezu lab ki mengune sene o ne kaje lule kön da yo na til lab yo mare sera ni che ba milenshese shara da sheso yala nyamba nam mecheches 견지 찬의 주교 말다. 현재 셈네 제소 송에나 현재 셈을 보그레 삼치다네 현다 티체네 콜티 삼그레 내가 말에 삼텐데 삼을 타고 와라. 코카르 삼네 삼가케바 메사 텐데 삼타지 메라. 어디 송와에 현재 셈네 셰바. 현심 셰베 뭐시세야데 와라. 결에 신의 공화동 공내니 현다 공매 요라. 현심 셰베 뭐시 현재 셈의 가르삼 말씀대 수서 하고 두고라 현심시 변고시 어디 신의 활동도 두고라 마도 대삼제 토백하지 마라 대조 토백 줄을 두고래 해야 된다 야
So, here, the divine eye, again, is a kind of clairvoyance that allows one to see all kinds of coarse and subtle forms. And so, too, then the divine ear, which comes in this next verse, is the ability to hear very subtle sounds. And again, like those that came above, these are describing activities that go toward the cause of that, but to attain the actual clairvoyance of the divine ear or the divine eye or any of these clairvoyances, one needs to have a union of calm abiding and special insight. And so it reads then in verse 293, by offering symbols and bells, so like symbols we play together with the hands, bells that you ring and so forth, for the worship of reliquaries, for the worship of stupas or other representations of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, and also giving conch horns and drums, you will attain the divine ear. So through those kinds of like offering music to various holy reliquaries and so forth, as well as giving conches and drums, this goes toward the cause of the divine ear, although that clairvoyance, of course, has developed through the union of calm abiding and special insight. And then in 294, which is the 19th of these 25, it says, do not speak of others' errors, nor mention their physical handicaps. By carefully protecting their minds, you will attain the knowledge of others' minds. So here, by not calling out the faults of others, like the faults that they have done in terms of actions, or referring to their physical defects. We have a tendency to like look at someone and say, oh, they're crippled, or oh, they're fat, they're skinny, whatever it might be, but not doing that, not just saying whatever we think, but rather thinking about how that will impact the other person, and thinking about protecting the minds of others. This then goes toward the cause of being able to know the minds of others.
뭐야 대단다 대가도 저지 반대 아디샤테 순진데 송다 현재 메삼스 란준 삼래 란준 장애신도죠. 신을 좀 가르도 따위로 가지고 그 가르치도 다되라 마다 소라 소소의 견데 삼르다제 티바 차게 번나시 소고나 차두자나시 바 요거요치에서 소소 팬도 시용 거라 저 셴견데 삼다나네 셴을 먹고 받는데 삼다에 차도라 근데 장기면서 소소 야구 제바도 실제 삼르다는 가게 깨진 거라 장기면서 셴지 야구 제도 삼르다시 티니 셴을 고셔다와 내가 사코티 야구 지기도 삼자한테 삼르고 그라 티스티나시 수고도 왔다마데 야 티체다 티 오마데 데레도 삼당 데 쇼로가 고주고주데라 그 연대나는 이슈바데데도 삼당 셔바 침바다 냠쇼 꾸로아 제바다 네 셔베 라마 그래도 셔베 라마 꾸로아에 케베 주드 토바르겨스 가르쳐도서 셴달라 람 한국 수시에도 소라 얘네 셴바 파서 타르부드 따다 직지 다대상이네 모다다 세겔다 텐데 셴바여셔라 아니 도메니베 냠쇼도 탁발키에다 모다다 텐데 나르케로시에더라 니마네 탁발키 신마도 시다 따카리라 얘네마도 요마라 대상 셴다르 요바 소바 꾸라셰베 셴바 라마 꾸라예세라 네 근데 셴달레 로바체바예 케베 찍도 유르시네 네 마음으로 유르알라 소바 주주진 것이 아닌데 주주진 것이 더베 저러세 뭐시체 거네 주주로 나서체 주주 나서 때 통계인 것이 된데 와라 데데데 근데 더베 줄로 그래서 야 되실라나
So here, this verse is similar to as Joel Atisha has said, that we shouldn't think of the faults of others. Like really, we should focus on looking at our own faults, not trying to find the faults of others. We're doing that in the sense of like, if we have poisoned blood, right, we want to do like bloodletting. We want to get rid of the things that are faulty, that are harming us, but it doesn't do us any good to be just pointing out the faults of others, although of course we are very good at this. And so too, we shouldn't sort of stick on our own good qualities. There's the danger of giving rise to pride, but really to look for the good qualities in others and rejoice in them. So we shouldn't get so focused on finding fault with other people, but rather turn inward and look at our own faults. That's what we need to deal with. So here then, continuing in the text, we move to verse 295, and it says, by providing shoes and conveyances, attending to those who are weak, and assisting your gurus with transportation, the wise person attains supernormal powers. So here, this is the kind of sometimes translated as like clairvoyance of magical emanations, the ability to show various magical emanations, comes in part from, say, giving shoes, foot covering to others, as well as various conveyances. Back in the day, if one needed to go for a long distance, probably you would give them something like a horse to be able to help with that. Although in modern times, we could think about cars or planes or any of those other types of transportation to be able to aid in getting places, and to be able to attend to those who are weak and to assist particularly your gurus with transportation. Again, the wise person attains supernormal powers, or sort of powers of magical emanation, to be able to emanate out various forms and so forth.
뭐야 다 쇼로가 굵직굵직들아 최기 최다 대신도 최숑 된다 temba당 최기 심바 팀에베 스럽 tem바 토바쇼서 다들 가르치고라서나 최기 최도 가와 수치서 갈래겨든데 수치 죽라 가치보다 최기 근데 쇼사게 근데 죽라 가든데 생바다서 최기 최다 대신도 아니 죽라가 제바다 대신도 최기 숑 당하서 저 매체바르 제시에서 최기 숑 빼자든데다 근데 돈다데 매시베시 수수 심을 샤야다. 템바다. 아니 템바다 렘바소이기라. 아마 템바다 렌소라. 티체는 갈래 티 용구를 삼체 벤조다 치때 돈다 삼르타에로 tin데 마치 삼르타 유메르스 샬라 펜심 비토네 세우레 셈라. 템바다 렌소라 로메베 쳐지 심바. 아 timamebe randa shengi ngoji sirab tembe ngomba sheba toba juro so odieta ngone chetengi ngoshi toba jure susu cho ngama chiro ngama kandere shengi cho ngama kaba kaba cho lando tinde ngone chetengi ngoshi sa tezula shine da ladon top te tumu maibe komjore tezu komni togura ta tezu tobe jula dugure songora toba juro tindigdo ne ke oma de tambo tishindo shana.
So then the 21st of these qualities comes in verse 296. Through making efforts for the sake of the Dharma, through keeping the Dharma treatises and their meanings in mind, and through giving the Dharma immaculately, you will come to remember your past lives. So here, by being able to bear with difficulties, endure difficulties for the sake of the Dharma, say in constructing temples or in preserving texts and so forth, as well as holding the meaning of those texts and not forgetting it in one's mind, then as well, by also giving the Dharma immaculately in such a way as you have no wish for some sort of return on that. You're not hoping for a reward or repayment, but rather only wishing to be of benefit. Immaculately offering the Dharma in that way goes toward the cause of one obtaining the clairvoyance of being able to remember one's own and others' past lives. And so again, as with these other types of clairvoyances, these activities go toward the cause of attaining that. But in order to really attain such a clairvoyance, one needs to have the union of calm abiding and special insight as a foundation.
뭐야? 하고 죽고 제대로. 제가서 뭐 너무 오니 매봐서 동번이 또 있으라. 뭐 너무 랑게 오니 매봐. 랑게 오니 매봐 소소 거랑 뭐 주요 매봐. 현달 때는 봤다 봐서라 되고라. 뭐 너무 오니 매봐. 양다 시신 용시배 다 동번이. 뭐 너무 랑게 뭐 주매봐. 랑게 다시 차셔야 된들 봐 때는 딱 봐. 잠을 샤고 받으세요. 다 동번이 있으라는. 너무 매봐라. 양다 지신 용시배. 양다 봐 전에 지던 내가 시도 용시배 동번 용시배. 뭐시 주고 사바고 세바 쳐내 터버려. 뭐시 주고 사세 용시시그라. 사바고 녀모 세배 세바다 녀모 방배 남라서 받대죠. 무슨도 시배 뭐시인데 톱도 그래서라. 뭐부 남턴 담방 오니 매봐. 양다 봐 지다 와신도 용시배에서. 뭐라. 능무시 주고 년대 세배 자와 년대 세배 자온 거 같은데 시어라 대 남들람 동방이 무슨도 또 배실어서 봐 대중 무슨도 세배 무시 톱도 삭세기 무시시라 삭세기 무시 사바 세배 무시 우중도 또봐 요로세 어때질람나야.
So then the 22nd quality comes in this next verse, 297, where it says, through correctly and truly understanding that all things are essenceless. So here referring to emptiness, referring to the fact that phenomena do not exist by their own nature or essence, but rather are merely designated upon a collection of causes and conditions, or collection of parts that is the basis of designation, but they don't exist by their own essence. So through correctly and truly understanding that all things are essenceless, you will obtain the sixth super knowledge, the supreme cessation of all defilements. So here, this describes in the commentary that by attaining this kind of knowledge, or by understanding how it is that all things, inner and outer phenomena, are ultimately without any kind of essence. This then leads to the attainment of this sixth super knowledge, which could be referred to as the cessation of all defilements, as in it is that kind of, and here in the commentary it refers to it as that sort of separation that is the exhaustion of all afflictions and obscurations, which is really referring to true cessation. And the sort of path of liberation that comes subsequent to that is then this supreme, one will obtain this supreme sort of exhaustion of all defilements, or cessation of all defilements, this sixth super knowledge.
그러네. 남자 마음이라. 어야 더 심전 탐제 내리다 구축 굴구들아. 심전 탐제 조회 실수도. 대신 니시 남된 바서. 심전 탐제 조회 대신이 동반이라서 봐. 시바단 된 바서리죠. 근데 닝지 nemba komba eso tongbanyi tobe shirabje nyingji chimbe simbe kone ro nyingji chimbe simbe kone tongbanyi toya de ngaje umma juba ka su ngba doyo ya chui na ge dawa tar doyo ya chui na dawa tar kujan shingi tongba tongwa sera soso ge tongbanyi to so na ne shanda tongbanyi ma do ge te zulia lakbar do nyingji kigu sera te tongni nyingji nyingbu chen sigdo tongni nyingji nyingbu chen 동반이 도배 시럽대 닝지 심부 심바 생기 랑가 또야 텐데 생다가 또요 말와 텐데를 닝지 께는 염도 송도다 동니 닝지 무슨 시도 어디게 제저라 심지어 탐제 절레시르 대신 니시 냠된 바세 네 닝지 렘바 공바에 닝지다 해도 냠바 공바에서 남배 총대 겨워요 남바 군데 남바 군지 총대에서 동리 인지 인부 전시로 남군 총대에서 도와달라 남군 총대 동반이 때 탑다 장바다 인지 자주 sembr서 같은데 심배거네 남군 총대 겨워도게 걸리죠 그래서 심지어 탐제 조회에서도 대신이 시에 시럽 냠되는 이시 저기 인지 렘바데 동반이 도배 시럽이 인지 전부 인보시한 공부에 다 동리 도배 시럽데 인지 전부 신배관에 공부에서라 아니 진소 연대 탐제 마상한 매버 남배초데 동반이 도배 시럽데 잠바다 인지다 진바 주름 서발 서버 연대 탐제 탑기차다 님도 신배관에서 남군 총대에 동리 도배 시럽 시도 어딜서 남바 거시를 마상하며 남배 쳤고 그다 덴베 자와를 주로세 지치 랍샤냐
So then the 23rd of these qualities then comes in verse 298. So it says, by meditating so as to liberate all beings upon the uniform awareness of suchness that has been moistened by compassion, you will become a victor with supreme qualities. So here I'm really getting at the importance of having this realization of emptiness be held with compassion, or really those be sort of intertwined together, as Chandrakirti has stated in the entrance to the middle way, describing beings are like reflections of the moon in rippling water. Seeing them as fleeting and as devoid of intrinsic nature, the bodhisattva's mind falls under compassion's sway, yearning to set free every transmigrating being. So here, this kind of realization of emptiness informs the nature of one's compassion, and so too, that compassion moistens that realization of emptiness. And so here, in order to be able to free all sentient beings, those who are sort of intelligent or who are endowed with wisdom, then pursue this kind of again, a collection of of wisdom that is moistened by compassion. So they're meditating on this essential mind, realizing emptiness that is held with compassion, and by so doing, they are able to accomplish all qualities without exception, including becoming a victor with supreme qualities. So here, this is really getting at the fact that all of the aspects of the method side of love and compassion and so forth are intertwined or are united with the realization of emptiness, or held or holding that. And so here, this is really getting at that wisdom and method need to be sort of combined, where the side of method is informed by the side of wisdom informed by the side of method.
Oh yeah. 다 연대니 시바도 시도와 솔로가도 가래 잡아도 잡아도 어다도 가셔도스나 뭐람 나서 다바예서라 산제 신네 다바르 요르세 뭐람 봄자 장메바 줄라서바 뭐람 나서 다바예 랑 강도 상제베 산제 신네 남바다고 토바르 요르세 어다 자주 선바 뭐람 자타 마부자라 말아줘 된들 있어라 뭐람 대치 가르삼나 된들 삼된데 영화셔서 뭐람 잡고 있어라 멤버 요코 바자라 샤제티 겨울랍 첨부사요라 막도 매나 삼사치 두샤서 아가티 마추나 사치 야부추나 삼사 뭐람 잡샤나 쇼를 샬 겨울랍 첨부사요라 어다 디스 있어라 갈세도스나 뭐람 봄다 다음에 맞출라서 봐 뭐람 나서 다바예 랑 강라 상제베 상제의 신이 나바다고 더버는 줄 무슨 뜻이 뭐람 개발나시 상마 두배 두바체 통계게 연대 탈신 통계 상제 있고 와도 외출도 그래서 오야 그네 디서 어디 tidlop 그래 뭐마데 다이 연대 가서 이시 쟁가 버터래도 개발적인 데 이시 쟁가 버터래도 니 타마 시간이 부탁해와다 통화를 전표와요 투병원 벌어서 봤는데 구순투 된다 된들이야 뭐네 rembochela so 봤는데 야 피와 된데서라 슈티다 된데 타자야 된데 와라 아니 타에 그네 넘버 트러스 아니 라는데 rembochela 저와라 so 된데 표라 된데 아니 마오바나 야 라나 왜 저와라 소바 투병원 벌어 remboche 피와 타에베 타에베 왜네 넘버 2 토반 주로사 디실람이야.
So then in our verse 299, in the first half comes the 24th of, again, these 25 special qualities. And it says, due to your unshakable resolve, your Buddha land will be pure. So here, a bodhisattva makes countless hundreds of thousands of prayers. And those prayers then lead to the various, those kinds of pure prayers lead to having a pure Buddha realm. And so here, our prayers as well, we sort of make them along the way, right? We are making wishes and hopes for the future, and that adds to our merit. This is the way in which we are eventually able to attain all of the kinds of qualities of Buddhahood, including having a pure realm and so forth. And so that is the 24th of these 25, and then the 25th of these qualities comes in the second half of verse 299, where it reads, by having offered precious gems to the king of sages, you will shine with infinite light. So by making offerings of, say, various jewels, like a throne, or various kinds of resplendent offerings to the king of sages, things like precious gems and so forth, then one will obtain this kind of radiance of light, this shining with infinite light.
왜 단딜 옵션아 솔로가 잡아들어 어딜 옵션 다 디가스로 때 도와들어 다 돈다 수티샤는 데레스 담말이야 소남대시 초셔야 돼 그러니까 대외 대달 렌제 다스라 다 레든데 손남다 시기 초이 레든데 사는 데부든데 연구래서 디나셔와 어디서 제외 대다 렌데다 팀버 켄제에서 어디 쉐바나시 팀버 개부케랑게 켄버 저시거라 켄제 된다 가르에서는 돌아 펜바 따도 된다 어떤데 거네 돌이야 니 펜토버트 따도 저세 디 캐나리아 펜버레세 샹라 펜버세버트 랑 펜버레세라 랑 마음바다 체데디 이걸이야 펜기거든 마음바야 데부디 랑 맹기거라 첸델레 랑 샴벨 좀베네 타와용거라 tene tene chola pemba la se tonda te shana te rese dola pemba na so te kera tonda ya so so le pengi ware mele pengi ware se so te shana te tewe na te da le de ngar she batara so de chebe se chunam da shi ge so de chebe se ora debu de jwe junde timber kimber dinar sheba na shi kanga Jutilian debu de yungure san kimber jane rangla pembe kobe tendo sa maomba social penya chendela penya semjen shenla penya tonda dola pemba ta dola pemba tu ta to jose te social penge ware stire dola pemba ta to jose se tini kebu chola pemba la so se shembe kaze chebenete tanda shenla pengore tanda social penge wara yende Sendene tante zobse, sengi tende karasen de liude. Anega ramboje tawasi jawa, chanju ge so de ba she jawa de liusumba. Di chanju ge so su de keba tangme sondo sonam da shi ge so sa gore se so jora. Di she de gora chanju so de semkene. Sonam ge so sa gore shi ge so keba tangme sondo sa ya she dra. China ko sonam da ishi sanya ko ngarajo chanju se magine she yora. 야, 근데 선남 당금 다이시 어디버도 시야. 이 류도 좋아서. 개보야 땀 뭐지로 시자와. 아니 소도바 시자와데. 류수바 야 어디서. 도치.
So here, just to get then the final verse of this chapter, verse 300 says, this is kind of a summary of what has come above. Thus, realize that a karmic effect corresponds to its karmic cause. Therefore, you should always benefit beings. This will likewise benefit you. So here, having reflected upon the relationship between cause and effect, here he encourages the king, saying that thinking about this kind of description of the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of wisdom, you should know that causes lead to corresponding results, and thereby when one acts in ways that benefit others, that is going to in turn benefit you, right? It's not this kind of action that one does in the service of other sentient beings is something that will eventually come back and help you as well. So however much you benefit others, it will be of benefit to you in the short term as well as in the long term, the kind of good results that will come from that. And so here what has been discussed is bodhisattvas, having generated this attitude of bodhicitta, need to accumulate merit for 3 countless eons, right? They need to accumulate the collection of wisdom and the collection of merit. I mean, those are categories that apply even before we have, those are things that we can train in even before we have generated this attitude of bodhicitta. But here, this chapter, this 3rd chapter, is then a kind of summary of the accumulation, the collections of enlightenment. And this is the 3rd chapter from this text of a precious Garland, which is advice to a king. So with that, we finish the 3rd chapter.
Yeah, I'll look to you.
So our time is up for today. Thank you all.
Thank you, Gina. And we rejoice that you collected many of these 25 qualities by teaching us today. So thank you. And thank you. As always, thank you, Katrina. We'll finish with some dedications.
Katrina created them by translating.
And Katrina created them by translating the teaching. All right, thanks.
May the spiritual teachers
Oh, yeah.
lead me on the sacred path, and the spiritual to despair have of life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of the sun's teachings dispel the darkness of the beings in the three worlds always increase. Iram Guru Rana Mandala
Oh, yeah.
and may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Oh, yeah, Lisa, точно.
Точно.
Ah, ja.